Chapter 4-6. Rashi and Krillin both looked expectant. They hadn't seen a Super Saiyan transform in 8 years. Goten focused and clenched his fists slightly. Almost instantly, a golden ki aura erupted from his body. His hair turned golden and eyes vibrant green. This was the Super Saiyan transformation. Soon, the golden ki aura around his body disappeared, because at this time, he had already mastered the Super Saiyan form. It really is the Super Saiyan transformation. This is great, Goten. You are a genius. Seeing Goten's Super Saiyan form, Krillin clenched his fists tightly, his face full of excitement. After 8 long years, he could finally witness the form of a Super Saiyan again. He finally saw hope. The excitement was hard to describe in words. And that appearance, it was the same as when Gohan and Goku came out of the hyperbolic time chamber. To be able to break through to Super Saiyan without anyone's help, this kid's potential is much stronger than Goku and Vegeta. Rashi's usually wretched eyes revealed an unbelievable look. At only 7 years old, he could become a Super Saiyan. This was definitely a potential that Goku and Vegeta didn't have. Seeing the surprised and unbelievable expressions of the two, Chi-Chi was naturally very proud. After all, Goten was her son, and she was the one who raised him. You're amazing, Goten. Come on, let me see your power after becoming a Super Saiyan, Krillin said to Goten, with an excited look on his face. If it was 8 years ago, he would never have even thought of fighting against a Super Saiyan. But since Goku and the others died in the Cell games, he had been training desperately with guilt every day. This was because he was the only surviving fighter at that time. The important task of protecting the Earth and stopping Cell naturally fell on his head, at least in his view. Therefore, in the past 8 years, he had been training desperately every day. He also felt that his strength had made a qualitative breakthrough. Goten was only 7 years old in his eyes. He should definitely be able to fight him. Well, come on. Goten waved at Krillin with a calm expression, indicating that he could start the attack. 3 years of hard training had also greatly improved his basic combat effectiveness and ability. Although his basic combat power may not be as good as the basic combat power of Goku and Gohan during the Cell games, the gap would definitely not be too big. Therefore, defeating Krillin shouldn't be too much of an issue. Then here I come, don't underestimate me. Krillin smiled and got into a fighting stance. In the next second, his body rushed towards Goten like an arrow shot from a bowstring. The speed was very fast, and afterimages were formed almost instantly. This caused Goten to be a little surprised. He didn't expect Krillin's strength to reach this level. But unfortunately, it was just that, a small surprise. This speed was still too slow. Krillin punched out. Goten just slightly turned his body sideways, easily dodging Krillin's attack. After missing the first hit, Krillin just kept launching one attack after another. The fists swept like a hurricane. Under the sweeping wind of the punches, big waves were generated in the sea. The sand under his feet spread in all directions. Goten, this boy is very strong. Maybe he's our hope, our only hope to beat Cell. Rashi narrowed his eyes slightly, and this thought immediately appeared in his mind. After witnessing just a few of his movements and sensing his energy, he knew that Goten possessed a very high power level. This kind of raw strength, Krillin would never be able to achieve. As expected of Goku's son. On the other side, Krillin was still attacking restlessly. It had to be said that his strength had indeed made a qualitative breakthrough compared to 8 years ago. However, in front of Goten, this power level was nowhere near enough. The gap was still quite big. This was because from the beginning to the end, Goten's feet never moved from his initial position, even though he had successfully dodged all of Krillin's attacks. This is amazing. He didn't even move an inch from his position, and still managed to avoid all of my attacks. There is still hope for Earth. Although his attacks were easily dodged, Krillin was not only not angry, but instead, he was extremely excited. He saw a new hope for Earth from Goten. The burden in his heart seemed to be reduced by a lot in an instant. Goten, try this. Destructo Disc Deca Blade. Krillin suddenly smiled, and suddenly raised his right hand high. A golden round blade of ki suddenly appeared on top of the palm of his hand. Then, he threw it directly at Goten. This was Krillin's unique technique, the Destructo Disc. He had also strengthened this technique in the recent years. Facing Krillin's powerful technique, Goten remained unmoved. When the Destructo Disc was only 5 meters away from Goten, it suddenly split into 10 pieces. Interesting. Goten smiled. His toes tapped the ground, and his body instantly rose into the air. He knew the power of Destructo Disc, and he would definitely not use his body and just take the hit. That would be absolutely stupid. He changed directions and made evasive maneuvers, trying to throw them off. The discs also changed direction instantly and followed closely behind him, refusing to let him escape. Goten dodged again, but the attack followed as if it had a tracker installed in it. Since I can't evade it, I'll just destroy it instead. Seeing the attack following closely behind, Goten suddenly turned around. He quickly shot some small energy balls towards the discs. Then, 2 energy waves blasted out directly. Rumble! An explosion wave immediately spread through the sky. Thick smoke billowed, and the 10 Destructo discs were destroyed instantly. After all, the strength gap between the two of them was still too big. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up the skill Destructo Disc Decablade. Ding! Congratulations to the host for picking up combat power, plus 120,000. At the moment when the Destructo discs were destroyed, the system notification also rang out in his mind. Sure enough, I got the skill. Although Destructo disc is not a particularly overpowered technique, it at least shows that the probability of picking up a skill in battle is still very high. After hearing the notification from the system, Goten was very happy. He could also feel himself getting stronger with that combat power boost. In the future battles, Destructo Disc could also be regarded as another trump card he has up his sleeves. Although it wasn't very strong when Krillin cast it right now, that was because Krillin's own strength was too weak. If Goten cast it himself, the effect would definitely be much stronger than Krillin's. And the stronger one's own strength was, the greater the effect of the attack. Whoosh! Having achieved his objective, Goten didn't want to continue this fight anymore. Goten increased his speed, and his body appeared in front of Krillin in an instant, shocking him. Then he asked with a smile, "Do you still want to continue, Krillin-san?" Goten addressed him that way because it would definitely be awkward to call him uncle. Krillin and Chi-Chi were totally different in his heart. "Forget it. You are ridiculously strong. The power gap between us is too great." Krillin shook his head with a wry smile. He couldn't hit him even after hundreds of attacks, and even Destructo Disc was easily destroyed. The two of them were not on the same level at all. "Chi-Chi, you did really well to train Goten to this level. He is really powerful." Later, Rashi and Krillin also expressed their admiration for Chi-Chi. To think a single-parent woman with almost no fighting power could actually train such a strong child. In addition to Goten's strong bloodline and talent, Chi-Chi's effort and care was absolutely indispensable. Of course, my Goten was always very strong. Chi-Chi was naturally very proud. Who didn't like to be praised? "Okay, you two can train with Goten. I'll come over to see Goten next week." After speaking, Chi-Chi used the capsule that Bulma had given her before, then took out a helicopter and left. "Mutant Rashi-sama, Krillin-san, let's spar again." After Chi-Chi left, Goten looked at Rashi and Krillin. After all, he still hadn't learned Kamehameha yet. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Although Goten had been training with Krillin for the past 3 days, Krillin's strength was really too weak. There was no way for him to match Goten at all, so the training was not very effective. Therefore, Goten decided to make a trip to the lookout and use the hyperbolic time chamber. The environment there was really harsh, making it more suitable for physical training. "Goten, have you really decided to train in the hyperbolic time chamber? The environment there is very harsh, and the gravity in the room is 10 times that of the Earth's gravity," Krillin and Rashi asked after hearing of Goten's decision. After all, Goten was only 7 years old, so it may not be a good thing to push his body too much to improve his strength. "Yes, I've made the decision. I don't know when Cell will return. My current strength is not enough to easily deal with Cell," Goten nodded firmly and said. Although the use of Ultra Instinct could easily erase the threat of Cell, but if his body wasn't strong enough, it wouldn't be able to endure the divine power of Ultra Instinct. At that time, it was very likely that he would receive a backlash by using the technique. "Krillin, you also go to the hyperbolic time chamber, along with Goten for training. Now, there are only you two warriors left on the Earth, so you two are the only hope for the planet. Although the environment there is very difficult, it can quickly improve your strength," Rashi said to Krillin. Goten was absolutely right. No one knew when Cell would return to Earth. At that time, if they were not strong enough, it would be impossible to deal with Cell. "I see, Mutant Rashi-sama," Krillin also nodded firmly. At this time, they could only rely on the two of them. After making the decision, the both of them immediately headed for the lookout. On the way, Goten also made a quick visit to Corinne's tower. He took the 4 remaining senzu beans away. By the way, he had to warn that fat samurai Yajirobe to not eat the senzu beans as food in the future. This thing could save lives at critical moments. The lookout. "Goten, Krillin-san, you're here." Dend, being aware of their visit, rushed forward to say hello. As the guardian of Earth, he could see everything on the Earth clearly. Therefore, he naturally also knew of Goten's existence. Krillin was a little surprised to hear Dend mention Goten's name. After all, he and Rashi weren't even aware of Goten's existence before meeting him. And looking at Dend's appearance, it was obviously very clear that he already knew about this. "Dend, we need to use the hyperbolic time chamber." Goten didn't waste any time and directly stated their intentions. "Well, I know. Mr. Popo, please take Goten and Krillin-san to the hyperbolic time chamber." Dend nodded, agreeing without hesitation, as he knew the purpose of their visit to the lookout. "All right, you two come with me." Mr. Popo was still very simple and honest. Following Mr. Popo, the two soon came to the hyperbolic time chamber. As soon as they walked outside the resting place of the hyperbolic time chamber, the gravity instantly increased. Still, 10 times the gravity didn't have too much effect on the two of them. Inside the small house near the door, some food was prepared. It wasn't a problem for two people to eat for 2 years. Damn, this kind of environment is really depressing. Looking around at the vast expanse of whiteness, Goten felt both relief and depression. That's why he didn't come to the hyperbolic time chamber before. It was too depressing and lonely. If one person stayed there alone for 2 years, it would be very boring. Although Krillin's strength was weak, and he really didn't expect him to be very helpful in the battle with Cell, but at least now, it wouldn't be too lonely in the hyperbolic time chamber. Okay, let's start training Krillin-san. Goten hardened his gaze. Next, there would only be 2 long years of serious training. Yes, Krillin also nodded firmly. Thinking of the helplessness from 8 years ago, his desire in becoming stronger was also extremely firm. He was of no help in the Cell games 8 years ago. Even the reason for Cell having a complete body was due to him. This was because at that time, he actually had the opportunity to destroy Android 18 and prevent Cell from becoming complete. However, he had failed to do it, and everyone else had to pay the price for it. This time, he must help Goten to make up for the stupid things he did 8 years ago. After a brief adjustment of their mentality, the two began to train diligently. At the very beginning, Goten and Krillin practiced against each other. But after a while, Krillin just couldn't keep up with Goten's progress. Moreover, the effect of this kind of mutual training continued to get weaker and weaker. So, after entering the hyperbolic time chamber for a month, the two began to practice their own. In addition to the necessary eating and resting every day, the rest of the time was spent on harsh training. Since entering the hyperbolic time chamber, Goten had been training in his base form. Because only by training in his base form could he actually fully exercise his physique and improve his basic combat power. After all, for a Scion, their basic combat power was of utmost importance. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, an entire year had already passed. For outsiders, this was just a day, but for Goten and Krillin in the hyperbolic time chamber, it had been a whole year. The environment in the room was indeed very harsh. Besides, it was too boring, so the year definitely hadn't been a good one. Goten, I'm going to end my training in the hyperbolic time chamber and think of other ways to enhance my strength. On this day, Krillin suddenly said to Goten. He realized that just staying in the hyperbolic time chamber would not improve his strength much. Because of his normal human bloodline, he could never improve his strength as quickly as Scion no matter what he did. Even if he stayed in the hyperbolic time chamber for another year, his strength would not improve much. If he wanted to be able to fight Cell, he had to think of other ways to become stronger. Other ways to become stronger? What is that? Goten asked curiously. During this year, his own strength has indeed improved by leaps and bounds, but Krillin's strength hadn't improved that much compared to his. In the Dragon Ball world, race and bloodlines were very important. Bloodline basically determined a person's upper limit. I haven't thought about it yet, but I know that just staying in the hyperbolic time chamber, it will not improve my strength substantially. Not to mention fighting monsters like Cell. In fact, the reason that Earth has become what it is now, and the reason that Goku and the others were killed, a lot of it has to do with my mistakes. Krillin shook his head first, and then said with a face full of guilt and self-blame. If he had directly destroyed Android 18 with the remote control at that time, it would simply be impossible for Cell to perfect his body in Goku, and the others would not have died. In the past 8 years, he had basically lived with that guilt. Fine, but you don't have to blame yourself too much. I don't think they would blame you. Goten nodded. Looking at Krillin, he also comforted him a bit. Then I'll go out first, you should train hard. After this year of training together, I know that you have a talent that is not weaker than Goku and Gohan, and you will definitely be able to defeat Cell. Krillin nodded heavily, then patted Goten on the shoulder, and said very seriously. This was not said lightly to make Goten happy. Goten's talent was indeed very strong. During this year, he could clearly feel that Goten's strength was improving every day. After the two exchanged a few more words, Krillin left the hyperbolic time chamber, looking for other ways to become stronger, and Goten continued to train. Day after day, the time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed. After Krillin left, the feeling of loneliness and boredom became more and more intense, but he was very clear that the strong need to endure this kind of challenges. In the time spent inside the chamber, Goten had grown a lot taller, and he looked a lot sharper. Especially his body, it was unusually strong. It was somewhat similar to Gohan's when he fought against Cell. Damn. Huff. Huff. After the day of training, Goten was completely exhausted. The training clothes on his body had also become tattered. He let out a long sigh and then began to prepare food. After Krillin left, The job of cooking could only fall on his head. After eating, his entire body and spirit felt much better. This was usually the case with scions. They recovered their strength after eating food. I have been training for more than a year, and my endurance is quite strong now. Let's try Ultra Instinct and see how long I can maintain it with my current body. Goten stood up, and then walked directly to the middle of the hyperbolic time chamber. He then took out some senzu beans and put the beans on his body within his reach. If he accidentally destroyed or blew away the beans, he would definitely be in a lot of trouble. This was a life-saving thing in a critical moment. After getting ready, Goten slowly closed his eyes. He gradually calmed down and emptied his mind, adjusted his breathing. Between his breathing cycle, strands of silver-blue energy slowly rose around the body. Immediately afterwards, the silver-bluish energy became denser and denser. The next second, Goten suddenly opened his eyes. His originally black pupils turned into silver, and a crescent-like light flashed through them. His hair swayed softly, even though there was no wind. An otherworldly silver halo erupted around his body in an instant. The whole person looked a bit ethereal. Accompanied by the appearance of the silver halo, the temperature in the entire hyperbolic time chamber suddenly rose in an instant. There was a distinctive change in his presence. This is this Ultra Instinct. It feels like I've suddenly integrated with the surrounding space. Goten muttered to himself. At the same time, he felt a very powerful force in his body. If his body was a container, this energy was like a river. It was very scary, completely filling up his body and then overflowing. There was a possibility that the container could break at any moment, being unable to handle the power. In just 10 seconds, Goten felt extremely overwhelmed. He immediately exited the state of Ultra Instinct. At the same time, an unbearable pain spread throughout his body. It felt like his body was being torn to pieces. Goten managed to somehow endure the pain and quickly grabbed a senzu bean, eating it immediately.